Thank you very much, Shamika Ravi, author of this report, joining us tonight from Tokyo. You've examined several countries, including India, and in our country, the findings of your report says that Hindus' percentage over the entire population has shown a declining trend of about 7.8%. I want to ask you, if the Muslim share is rising and the number of Sikhs and Christians too has gone up, what does this show about the treatment of minorities in India?
So, Navika, this is a cross-country study of 167 countries over 65 years. We were keen to understand what is happening, what is the status of minorities across different countries. And what we find is the Indian experience is actually quite similar to what you find in the Western, sort of the liberal, the plural democracies, which are, very encouraging and welcoming towards minorities. So in that sense, the increase in the composite share of minority groups, which includes Muslims, Christians, Buddhists, and Sikhs, you have a decline in Hindu population, which is majority of around 7.82%, and a commensurate increase in the fraction of minorities. So that way we are similar to these OECD, the more developed parts of the world. We are also very dissimilar. We are very unlike the rest of the other countries in our neighborhood. Particularly if you consider Bangladesh, Pakistan, Sri Lanka, Bhutan, Afghanistan, these are countries where minorities have had an alarming decline. They have shrunk very drastically, and in that sense, India is quite unique, and therefore, we lay the claim to being liberal democracies and truly plural.
So let me ask you, when you talk about our neighborhood, Pakistan, Bangladesh, so you're saying minorities that is Hindus in these countries are on the decline, which means there is institutionalized persecution and discrimination of minorities in these countries?
Well, from the data, we can't tell whether it is institutionalized or what aspect of policies have led to these outcomes, but clearly it is a mark of discrimination, Navika. Because I think one thing we learned during this report, this research, which took us about 8 months because this new novel data became available, and we got to know about it, is that not every country in the world actually has identified minorities. They do not define minorities, which means they do not even have policies which pertain to welfare of these groups, right? So that's lesson number one. And that's where countries like China stand out, that there is no dedicated policy for welfare of certain groups identified as minorities. But beyond that, we also, we know that if you are seeing a major decline, then there are many policies that are leading to an environment which is basically discriminatory in nature. And that is why the minority populations have shrunk so drastically. And that is where India stands out as a quite remarkably different from other countries in this neighborhood.
So Shamika Ravi, then the rhetoric this election season about Muslims live in fear in India, is that theory completely busted after this study?
This is where, listen, politics and politicking, and there is a lot of anecdotal, it's experiences of people, and this in some case is an objective measure. And it's I think for the first time in the last several decades that, so there was a gap even in the literature in terms of understanding what is the situation on the ground as far as different demographics are concerned, like the share of different demographics. So that way, away from anecdotal speeches and anecdotal evidences and sort of fear-mongering, this is an objective scientific inquiry. It's open data, and I request and I encourage others to verify and do these analysis for themselves. But I think this is step zero. This is the first step to actually having an informed conversation on matters of minority rights and what is, our future policies, what they should look like, or the effectiveness of our past policies. After all, we are one of the few countries that actually has dedicated ministry for minority affairs. and not just at the level of the center. But a lot of the implementation of these policies are happening at the state and sort of local level. So I think this is a first step to recognizing the change, accepting the change, and then moving forward with what modern, new, progressive policies should look like.
Well, very well said, Shamika Ravi. You've hit the nail on the head and set this narrative at least to rest, that Muslims live in fear in India. Thank you very much for joining me.